Okay, so what are the benefits then of functions? Firstly, and this is the crux of why we use functions, it allows us to reuse the same code many times within the program without having to copy it each time. And I will show a little bit of example of that. So for example, the AT content consisted of that block of code where we wanted to calculate the AT content. That consisted of 6 lines. If we want to use it 6 times throughout the code, we're going to have to copy that 6 times and make sure that we always copy all 6 lines, because if you don't, it gives an error. So it's error prone. Also, like I said, if we decide then that we want to change something in the line, like let's say, for example, we don't want to calculate the proportion of A's plus T's, but we want to calculate the percentage of A's plus T's, right? So then this line over here would be more or less the same, except that you have to multiply by 100 so that you get percentage. So now you've got this 6 times throughout your code. Now you need to go to all 6 of them and add multiplied by 100. And again, that can give errors because you might just forget it by one place. Then also, when we write our code into different functions, and maybe it's not as intuitive now, but I will explain that a bit more. But when you have many lines of code, and sometimes you would run, often you would run into errors. The nice thing about writing functions is that functions are usually tested. So like your print statement that comes automatically with the Python, and this function over here where you open a file and you write it, those are the tried and tested functions. And you might also get to the point where you have functions that you try and you test it and you know it works. Like that's this calculate 80 content that we wrote. The nice thing then is, if you do run into errors and you need to troubleshoot, you know that you can ignore all the functions because they should work fine. So it allows you to tackle the real problems because you know those functions, those blocks have been tested and they work. Also, you can reuse your code, like I said, multiple times across multiple programs, and that we will see again. What you might not realize is every time that you remember when we used import something like import math in the previous chapters, that was actually a function. It's actually usually a file stored somewhere. Sometimes when you download a set of files from GitHub, then you will get, for example, 5 Python files in there. And those 5 Python files will all contain different functions. And actually when you import some of them will say import, and what they're actually doing is that they're importing a function from one of those files. So, and you can do exactly the same thing. I will show you one of the examples from that. So let's imagine, for example, that you've got this block of code over here. Like I said, you've got some lines of code here, and you've got this block of code here that needs to calculate the 80 content. Then you've got some more code, and then you go, oh wait, I need to calculate 80 content again. So you copy this 4 lines and you calculate 80 content again, and so you go on. This could go on forever with this occurring multiple times. And like I said, it's complex. It makes your code longer, and you have to make sure that you're not calculating errors. So then again, you decide that you don't want AT, but you want AC. So now you need to go find C in all the code, all the times that you copied this, and change this to C. And then, so again, imagine then if you only calculated this for 2, and you've said A plus T, the way that we've created the function now is that it's not going to, you don't have to calculate it for A and for T specifically. The user can choose what they want to. So again, all of this makes it simpler for when you want to make changes to your code. If you add these arguments to the functions, then the user can then, this allows a user to have a little more control and it allows you to not have to fix the code in multiple places.